Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. And now the Friday Crime Report. June 10th, 2022. Matthew Belanger was arrested in New York and charged with making false statements in order to obtain firearms illegally. He had a Long Island, New York police officer make the strawman purchases for him, which included a PTR assault rifle. Belanger wasn't legally able to purchase those weapons himself, which is why he had the cop do it for him. Belanger had come up on the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force radar because of his online activity and the neo-Nazi group he belongs to, which calls itself Rapekrieg. I'm not making that up. We'll get to them in a moment. Anyway, the feds began to suspect this Belanger guy and his pals might be planning to do something against synagogues, so the FBI questioned Belanger about guns that he owned. He conveniently left out the part about the assault rifle, which of course constitutes lying to a federal agent. Now, before all that, Belanger was a U.S. Marine. And a neo-Nazi. He had joined the Marines in 2019. In October 2020, Marine Corps officials as well as the FBI searched Belanger's barracks and his electronic devices. They found 1,950 images, video, and documents related to white power groups. They found Nazi literature and material regarding Dylann Roof. So basically, the FBI and the Marines found an orgy of evidence that this creep is a violent white extremist, and no doubt joined the Marines so he could learn tactics and methods that he would then take back to his white extremist buddies, which is why a lot of these trash bags joined the military. 7 months after the FBI and Marines searched his belongings, Belanger was discharged from the Marines in May 2021. But here's the interesting thing. He didn't get a dishonorable discharge. Instead, they gave him a, get this, other than honorable discharge. Oh, the lengths they'll go to maintain white immunity from law and punishment. Now, since Belanger's up on federal charges, his mugshot hasn't been released, and nobody's talking about the fact that this neo-Nazi had a cop making illegal gun purchases for him. The white media doesn't mind saying that this guy was a Marine and that there's neo-Nazis in the military, but this guy wasn't working alone. This proves that the police are neck-deep in procuring weapons for neo-Nazis. Whatever punishment and scrutiny these rape king maggots get, the police should get 3 times as much. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this Belanger guy and his neo-Nazi buddies were part of a group that they call Rapekrieg, literally rape war. And there's other white supremacist groups organized around the same sick idea, such as Rape Waffen. The idea behind it is to use rape as a weapon. Like most of these self-important mental defectives, the Rapekrieg crowd wrote what the white media is calling a manifesto, in which they spell out that rape ideology, quote, is an extremely effective tool against our many foes. That means black people, and that rape greatly reduces enemy morale. But that was only part of what Rapekrieg was about. This Rapekrieg gang planned to go on a spree of raping white women in particular, and this would be done in order to increase the white population of the United States, whether white women wanted to bear those babies or not. Now you understand why so many neo-Nazis and others on the white right were so jolly in the behind at the prospect of banning abortion nationwide, and why they've been on this jihad for 4+ decades, and why they don't want any exceptions for rape. As we in the black community have always known, these racist police and racists in the military are not working in isolation. They have open, full-throated support from the police chiefs and mayors when they carry out their killings, assaults, and false arrests against black people. And in the military, they're encouraged and protected by their superior officers and the civilian leadership who they're waging race war on the behalf of. When you have a Daniel Holtzclaw who rapes dozens of black women, when you have other anti-black racists who rape black women, you better understand these aren't isolated incidents. There's a program at work here, and has been for a very, very long time. And on a side note, it's interesting that this Belanger guy is a big fan of Dylann Roof, because one of the reasons that Dylann Roof gave for why he slaughtered a church full of black grandmothers was because he claimed that black men were running around raping all these white women. And here this Belanger guy is planning how he and his white supremacist buddies are going to be raping a lot more. And this was not being put up as some sort of sick humor. They meant every word of it. So you have these white supremacist serial rape gangs running around. And just in case you think that this was all just idle talk by a bunch of sick white supremacists, this Rapekrieg group also had encrypted group chats where they discussed raping this one girl in specific. They had pictures of this girl at her high school and at a music recital. They described their intended victim as a good find and how they could possibly get her pretty easy right now. So these rape-happy neo-Nazis were already scoping out victims. You won't be surprised to find, of course, that these guys are a quote-unquote Accelerationist. I told you about that white supremacist subculture years back, the white supremacist idea that the white world order is in danger of becoming influenced by black people, so they need to speed up the process of societal collapse, that is, to accelerate it, before black people make any more gains. Bring it all down right now, and, they think, they'll be able to use the chaos of society and collapse as cover to commit genocide against black people and wipe out the non-whites, principally black people. And then they will be the rulers of what they think is going to be a purer, stronger white global hegemony. Now, part of their manifesto, which Belanger himself took part in writing, says that if their members are unable to pull the trigger on a Jewish child, then they're not mentally prepared for the level of violence that the collapse of the First World would bring. But of course, they didn't stop there. Quote, "To be successful in this battle, the white man must learn to hate, seeing red the moment he lays eyes on a member of the race that has inflicted unspeakable horrors onto his people." I have no idea what these clowns are talking about, and that's okay because they don't know what they're talking about either. What unspeakable horrors have black people inflicted on the white race or on white people at all? Did we enslave hundreds of millions of white people? Did we force them into hellish labor camps where we literally worked them to death? Did we mass rape white women and then sell those mulatto babies at auction? Did we write laws saying that white people are only 3/5 human? Did we lynch white men, women, and children? Did we firebomb their churches? Did we form marauding mobs and destroy white townships and kill thousands and thousands of white people merely for being financially successful? Did we write white codes meant to oppress white people or set up sundown towns where we would target white people if we caught them there after dark? Did we perform medical experiments on white people? Did we deny white people their basic human rights and human dignity? Did we tell lie after lie after lie to cover up and even attempt to justify this barbarity? Did black people do anything like that to white people at all? Because the things I mentioned are just the tip of a very large, very ugly iceberg of atrocities and abominations that the white supremacists committed against black people and continue to perpetrate against us to this very day. We'll continue with the moment of truth in just a moment, but first, a word from the official sponsor of Black Empowerment, Power Tools. There's no telling when something's going to come up, so make sure you carry your power tools at all times. You never know when you're going to need to bring the hammer down, or when you'll have some trash that needs to be blown away, or some obstacle that requires cutting down. Don't get caught empty-handed. Keep your hammer close by. Keep that leaf blower at the ready, and always carry your steel. Power tools, because no matter what your day job or side hustle may be, there's no excuse for not being ready to put in some work. No one has mistreated these white supremacists. No one has the ability or the desire to. But this is the lie they tell themselves because they have to justify the violence they want to carry out. Why do you think these mental midgets spend so much time obsessing on post-apocalyptic fantasies? From the Turner Diaries to the Camp of the Saints to every neo-Nazi fanfic you never heard of, all their little fantasies revolve around how they're going to take over after the Great Collapse. It's all just roving gangs of white supremacist survivalists, armed to the teeth and killing whomever they wish to kill. Also, on a side note, this Belanger creep created a number of social media pages, including a Facebook profile under the name Adolf Hitler, among others that he would use to procure guns. Think about that next time Facebook locks your account or some other black person who advocates against white supremacy. Belanger also had other accounts that he used to try to create hostility between non-whites, particularly black people and Jews. One of his fake Twitter accounts went under the name of Israel Schillingstein. He would pretend to be a Jewish man and then spout all sorts of anti-black messages online. But it seems he went a step too far when he aimed some of his posts at law enforcement. One of Belanger's posts said, "Catch me if you can." Well, you can see the last word. Well, you ought to be careful what you wish for. Now, as for these dummy accounts, these troll accounts online doing this kind of crap, you notice, of course, that I and a lot of the rest of us, we don't respond to these. We've been around the block a lot of times. We've seen these white supremacist troll accounts enough times where it doesn't fool anyone. But what's interesting is that Twitter almost never does anything about these accounts. Oh, they'll lock the accounts of the New Voices of Black Media merely for making a post questioning white supremacy or some aspect of anti-black violence. But as for these white supremacists, Twitter gladly lets them operate with impunity, just like YouTube does. These are white supremacist organizations here. Their job is to promote and signal boost anti-black racism. I would say that the majority of these companies' employees, certainly a majority of their executives and managers, are anti-black racist, and you can tell by how they run things. This anti-black racism isn't happening in spite of Twitter or Facebook or YouTube. It's happening with Twitter and YouTube and Facebook's active participation, support, and protection. See, these white supremacists know that they don't have all that much support. Not in the real world, they don't. That's why they spend so much time pushing memes and crap posting and trying to annoy people with spam posting white supremacist talking points in the comment sections. In 2020, they saw that the people they hate were able to organize offline and literally came into these white supremacist neighborhoods and their police precincts and overran them. In 2020, the good guys didn't use memes or Twitter posts or YouTube videos. The revolution will not be televised, and it won't be podcasted either. This is why the white supremacists are so addicted and over-reliant on trying to post stuff online. Matthew Belanger is headed to trial, but we know that he's only a drop in the bucket of white supremacists in the police and the military. Now, the white media who's reporting on Belanger makes sure to mention that Republicans voted against legislation that would require all branches of the military, as well as the FBI and Department of Homeland Security, to compile a report in 6 months about extremism in their respective services. While there's nothing wrong with doing a head count of the white supremacists in these government organizations, what's missing is any talk of what punishment these white supremacists will get. The government has allowed and helped this cancer to grow to this level. They're going to need a lot more resources and manpower to go after these online terrorists, and I noticed that word never came up in regards to the charges Belanger could face. The FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force is who got the ball rolling on this, but nobody's saying he's a terrorist or that he should be charged as one. So this is merely confirmation of what black people have been saying all along. White supremacist rape gangs targeting victims and planning to destroy the country. Now, black folks need to be on alert. These white supremacist targets are black people. That's who their rape targets are. That's who their targets of violence are. All of these mysterious drive-by shootings that take place out of nowhere in black neighborhoods, and the police conveniently never figure out who did it. Maybe because the police were the ones buying the guns for these white supremacists who do these shootings. And when you have black women and girls raped at the hands of persons unknown, or in many cases by the police themselves, they know who did it and they never bring charges. This is what's going on here. White power wants to protect the Matthew Belangers and the Rapekriegs because these guys are the irregular forces of white supremacy. That's why the military let this guy leave without labeling his forced ouster as dishonorable. Well, these white supremacists better watch their step, or they might find themselves becoming the subject of another type of discharge. But this kind doesn't come in the form of a piece of paper from the military. And that's this week's Friday Crime Report. Keep your eyes open and stay on alert, because there's a lot worse criminals out there than the ones that the white corporate media chooses to show you. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. Turk McKenzie, Loke Thies, Andrew Murphy, Genesis Reset, and Frank Den. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.